Welcome, everyone. Dr. Anthony Criniti IV here, also known as Dr. Finance, and today's a very special day. I'm actually going to show off my books a little bit today. So today I'm going to showcase some of the books that I think are very important in the finance area, and I think could be very helpful for you, and could possibly make you rich. And I'm going to explain that caveat in just a second. Okay, so before we get started, I actually want to just talk about some quick things on this whole topic. So easily, if you scour the internet, you'll see I've read 100 books, and this will make you rich, things like that. I want to just talk about the title of this video here. So, folks, first of all, I was a university professor for 10 years, was a financial planner for 10 years. To get all the degrees and certifications and designations that I got, I had to read lots of books. And when I became a professor, teaching at 6 universities, they actually give you books. So let's say I had 10 classes one semester. I actually would get a new textbook every time they came out with a new edition. So that could be 50 to 100 or more books a year, and you multiply that by 10 years. Yeah, possibly I could have read thousands of books, but most likely hundreds of books. The point is, it doesn't really matter how many books you read. It's about the quality of the books you're reading, right? So if you scour the internet right now, just let's do a quick Google search. Amazon search. Go to Amazon. This is a great way to test this. Real quick sample test. Type in the word money, and over 60,000 options pop up on the screen. Books, go to books category and money, and I'm looking at, as of 5 seconds ago, 60,000 plus, about 5 minutes ago. Okay, about 5 minutes ago, 60,000 plus books available with the topic money. Finance, almost the same. Then you can put investing in and related topics, and you get about the same. And when you add it together, it's probably over 100,000 books just on Amazon right now for that topic. So do you need to read all of them? No, not at all. Are most of them going to say the same thing? Probably, yeah. Probably they will. So really, is it in your best interest to read as many books as possible? No, you find the ones that are really quality, that can really uplift your life, enlighten you as a person, and you go with them. So I never would brag on how many books I read. That's not, to me, that doesn't mean anything. So I noticed, and I'm a big reader, avid reader, I'm a writer at heart. So whenever I seen folks talk about I read thousands and thousands of books, that's not impressive, folks. Don't ever get impressed by that. We don't know what they're reading. Like we don't know how, and then we don't know how in depth they went. So I actually prefer to read fewer quality books and go deep with them. So anyway, let's get past that, because that's an important point. How many books you read doesn't matter. It's what you're reading. So that's important before I start showing some of these books and talking about it, because I want you to understand that. I could easily dump 1,000 books on my desk and say, yeah, these are all the cool books that you should read that are in the finance category, but that's just because they're related to money doesn't mean you should read them, right? And the second thing I want to talk about is really, these are topics built into the title. Many folks put out there, I read X amount of books and these will make you rich. Okay, first of all, there's no guarantees that reading any book is going to make you rich. Let's be clear about that. You can read even the best books, and the books I'm going to show you right now, you can read them and you can have all this knowledge that is just like all the knowledge in your phone that you walk around with. And that doesn't mean you're going to get rich. You have to apply, you have to act, it's up to you how you interpret it and what you do with that information. It's going to make you rich. So the best way to restate that is not reading these books will make you rich. Reading these books and you could get rich. You could. And that's contingent upon certain things, how you interpret it and what you're going to do about it. So these are two very important points before we get started with this journey today. So stick around, folks. I'm going to really show you guys some cool stuff. And you know, I really enjoy making videos like this, especially this one, because books are so important. So it's a very special day. I'm actually going to show you some special books that I have. I used to work at the Vanguard Group, the largest investment company in the world at that time. And I got to see John Bogle, living legend, up there with Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett actually idolizes him. So I got to see him. I got several of his books I'm going to show you today, hand signed by him. So really cool, rare stuff here. But before we do that, I just had to put those two caveats out there. Remember, you can go read all these books, but then it comes about what you're going to do with the information. So what I'm going to display today is actually a variety of books that could make you money, could make you monetarily rich. But I'm also going to add a few books to help you from a holistic standpoint, make you not just monetarily rich, but rich as a person as a whole. Okay. Now, remember, your number one goal should not be just to make money for money's sake. Money is just a tool. So it's best for you guys to focus on making money while you're also trying to be the best version of yourself. Okay, because then you won't be let down when you actually make a lot of money. You could get to that point, but you could be a very miserable multimillionaire or billionaire. So what was the point of that? And although and that's another book that I would show you, but it's not exactly completely in the money lane. But Mann's Search for Meaning, a book written by Viktor Frankl, you should definitely read that as well. That could change your life. Okay, so it helped me a lot as well to understand some stuff. And one of the main things was that classifying money as a purpose in life is not acceptable, because it'll lead to what Viktor Frankl calls existential frustration. You're frustrated with your existence. People who are very monetarily rich, they got all this money and they're not happy. And it's in the same boat with power, by the way. People got a lot of power and they're not happy because they made power and they made money the ultimate goal. And when they got it, they realized that's not a purpose. That's not a purpose, a reason to live on this planet, just to make money. Because when you got it, what else are you living for at that point? So you got to have other purposes, right? So with that said, that's why reading that book could be very helpful and supplemental to all the books I'm going to give today. Again, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. All right, so where do I start with this journey? Where do I start? I mean, I'm going to showcase probably about, I say 20 or 30 books. Let's start with some of the classics, okay? And again, a whole bunch of different categories to help you to be rich, all right? So I'm going to start with I mean, you could always go with the Bible, okay? If you want, there's lessons from there. If you really want to go way back to classics, there's a lot of really good lessons. And then Ben Franklin's works that he did in the 1700s also had a lot of wise sayings and things like that. And I've listed his book in my second book. So a lot of these you can actually find throughout my three books as references. So Ben Franklin had a lot of good sayings, but really the creation of economics and finance as a whole can be attributed to this book right here. This is one version of it, The Wealth of Nations, from Adam Smith. This was published in 1776. It's a very thick book. And it's over 1,000 pages. This will take a while to read, and take your time with it. There's a lot of stories in here, and some of them could be considered antiquated, but you got there's history involved, and it's very helpful to really paint a picture of that time frame. But in short, this book really began to create the science of economics, and that lasted for about 150, maybe 200 years before finance eventually was created. Believe it or not, economics came first. And my arguments, which is beyond the scope of this conversation, is that finance is a different science than economics. But this started modern economics, which also was tied in with political economics. It was one science at one time, political science. eventually split the late 1800s. But how could this make you rich? Well, understanding the difference between the nation and an individual's rights to freedom and earning money and their roles and their desires. Some of the basics of some of the conclusions that I came up with had roots in this book. All right, so it's definitely a minimal or supplemental to making you a rich person, but understanding the dynamics that economics and finance play with each other, the interconnections between the two. Here's the history today. So that's a classic. We're going to go to a different classic now. We're going to step up about 150 years or so. 1937 book. Here's one variation of it, by the way. Again, Think and Grow Rich. This is the edition I have. The original. Let me take this down a little bit. The original classic. Okay. Posing. All right. It says sold over 15 million copies sold. It's probably a lot more than that. This book is like the golden book for every CEO today in big corporations, presidents. They all know about this book. The wisdom in here is wisdom that can be applied in so many different areas. It's basically comprised of chapters that Hill calls the 13 Steps to Riches. And that's part of a book series that I actually co-authored in as well. And I had to write a chapter for each one of these steps. So I had to reread this book and rewrite a lot of stuff. And I'm glad I did recently because it's so powerful. These are things that apply to the mind. You're learning how to control yourself with this book. And that, my friends, is not taught in traditional finance books, but it's very, very important. Let me just go over some of these 13 steps to riches. He starts with desire. Talks about that's the first steps to riches. You got to have desire. You got to want to be rich, right? Faith, auto-suggestion. Some of these topics are a little bit more advanced, and he goes into detail with it. Specialized knowledge. Talks about imagination. He's really super creative, Napoleon Hill. The way he talks about things. He interviews supposedly 500 of the top richest people on the planet at that time, and this helped him. Organized planning, decision, persistence. You have to be persistent in everything you do, especially on something you really want to be a master at and make a lot of money. You got to be persistent at it. Can't give up. He talks about this concept called the mastermind, which is having a bunch of people that are really great at what they do in your circle and constantly feeding off each other, becoming like one mind. And then the mystery. This is This is probably the oddest chapter. The mystery of sex transmutation. I'm not even going to talk about that in detail. It's very complicated, but basically transferring sexual energy to become to use it for a force for productivity. Then the 11th step to riches is subconscious mind. Okay, he talks about the subconscious mind. Remember, this is post Sigmund Freud. So they were really expanding on a lot of his conclusions around that time. The brain, the 12th step to riches, and then the last step is called the sixth sense. So this is actually a really cool chapter, the sixth sense, the 13th step to riches, and then how to outwit the 6 ghosts of fear. This is not something that would be in a traditional finance book because we're not analyzing investments or any of that stuff. We're analyzing the investment of you, the individual, and everything up in here. That's why it's called Think and Grow Rich. And you should definitely watch my Dr. Finance podcast, live podcast. I interviewed the CEO of Napoleon Hill Foundation, folks. Incredible interview, Don Green, and one of his main points to this book was Think and Grow Rich. Most people think that you're just going to grow rich, but growing, it's not just think. You have to act. That's where the grow rich part is. You've got to act. The grow rich is the act of doing something. So don't just think about it. You got to do it. You got to act it, and that could lead to wealth. So not just in your mind, laying on the couch, say, I'm going to be rich. I need a mansion and a yacht and all this stuff. How are you going to do it? Go act and do it. So that's one of the keys. And to act, how do you act? And that's what Napoleon Hill's talking about. Being persistent, working on your subconscious mind and all those steps that we just mentioned. Great book. Anyway, I don't want to get into, I got a lot of books to cover, so I'm going to try to keep it as brief as possible. This one's very important. It's called Portfolio Selection. All right. I guarantee all the books that people are mentioning in any of these videos prior to this video. If you go on YouTube and people read this book, and this is going to, I read 100,000 books, and this is what will make you rich, right? None of them even talk about this. So they don't have a clue unless you even understand where this book fits into the area of making money, which is the concept or the science of finance. There's a science to this stuff, folks. It's not just make money, how to make money. There's a science. Portfolio selection was actually a dissertation by Harry Markowitz. And that was the journey into becoming a real science of finance. It became a book. Here it is. And the concept of diversification is what this really talks about. This is a very boring book. I'm just going to be honest with you. I mean, look at these. It's all, let me show you. It's a lot of mathematical computations. This is really what it is. Graphs, like just formulas and problems being solved, right? Like this is the whole book, really. You're not going to really get pure knowledge in the context of a really well-written book. But I would recommend this book so that you can understand the roots of finance and how it all began, and the concept of this. If you can get the concept of this, portfolio selection. A portfolio is a collection of different investments. So how do you select these different investments? And one of them, if you get one thing from this book, it's the concept of diversification can make you more money if you apply it correctly with less return. That's the whole bottom line to this, and a lot of the knowledge that rooted the science of finance. Okay, diversification can lead to maximization of return while minimization of risk. This is Harry Markowitz started this in the early 1950s. So this book eventually led to the concepts, which led to Vanguard Group having the index fund, the company I worked for, which revolutionized the whole mutual fund industry, and all the money in the world is basically, most of it is in these kind of mutual funds. Or variations, which would be the hedge funds. And this all is applied from the roots of the concept of diversification. And this book right here started all that. Okay. So very important for history of how to make money. All right. And then, of course, you could read William Sharp. He has a book that he wrote as well. And that was Harry Markowitz's student. And that also became a foundation to the science of finance. But I just wanted to show you just one of these, because if you got that concept, that's good enough, right? Like, again, the book is boring. It's not a good read. It's all numbers. You're just reading through it. And not that I'm downplaying numbers. Numbers are great, but that was good for the argument, which built the foundation to get where we're at in finance today. But it doesn't mean in practice, if you can just strip out the main idea and get that, that holds the value right there. All right. So with that said, here's another classic: How to Win Friends and Influence People. What's this have to do with making money, getting rich? Well, a lot of making wealth, not just the investing side. Okay, this is from the sales side, from the business side, from marketing side. All these other factors to becoming a great business person, to getting rich monetarily. You have to understand psychology. And I don't want to start throwing psychology books in this, but I probably should. I just want to water it down, to sum it down and simplify it to just business type books. But I want to at least throw one of these in, and this would be the book. If you're going to learn how to be a better communicator and connect with people, which is essential, this would be the book. Because How to Win Friends is a classic book, by the way. It was published a very long time ago by Dale Carnegie. And let me see if there's a year here. I think it was 1930. It says copyright 1936. Okay, so that's a long time ago. And it's been referenced by many people throughout the ages. But it's a book that really, I think you could boil it down really to this lesson. It's kind of like, if you want to influence people, if you want to win friends, what you need to do is understand that what they need. It's as simple as that. What do they stop putting? You got to be able to strip out you from them and be objective, even though we're wired to be subjective. And when you figure out what people want, then you can help them. And that's how you win friends and influence people. I think that is a good summary. Now, I'm not going to summarize all these books, but I'm just giving you a sample. This one helped change my life, at least from a stock perspective. Peter Lynch, One Up on Wall Street. This guy, a genius in the mutual fund industry. This is how Peter beat the market. In finance, there's a whole argument you're not supposed to beat the market. Well, how do you explain Warren Buffett? How do you explain Peter Lynch? And Peter really goes in. This is copyright 1989. Why it changed my life was because it helped me to make connections that they weren't teaching me as a finance student. Learning all these different theories and stuff. Why are we learning about these things for stocks? Like, isn't there another way to look at it? Isn't there a qualitative way to look at it? And he helped with that. He helped to explain that businesses, when you invest in stocks, you're not just gambling, right? Like you're actually owning a business. That's such an important concept. When you go and buy stock, you are becoming an owner of a business. So think like that. And one of the lessons I have in my second book, Only Invest in Things you know and understand, right? The most important lessons in economics and finance. That lesson was connected to this. If you want to be a stock investor, if you want to invest in stock, find out the company find a company that you're interested in, that you want to learn about, that you'd like to be an owner in, because that's exactly what you're signing up for, becoming an owner, right? You're not just picking up a random stock. Oh, I'll put 1,000 in Coca-Cola yeah, maybe that'll help diversify a portfolio, right? That's for like a bigger picture investment. But if you're looking for higher returns, find the ones that you are really interested in and that you really are willing to put the time in, because you're frankly, it's something that fits in with your desires in life. That company resonates with you on a higher frequency. And the main lesson in that also is go visit these places, right? Like, for example, if you're investing in Walmart, take a visit there once a week. Check around the different stores. How are things going? And become better understood with the way that store works, as if you were the owner, because you are the owner, but you're partial owner, depending on how many stock shares you own. But you're still an owner of a business. So One Up on Wall Street that was a lot of his strategy. I think it's a great book. It's a great book from an investing standpoint. Okay. We'll throw a little bit of real estate in here, and again, no politics on this platform. I don't do politics, but this book was good, even though I found out later, sadly, Trump did not actually write this book. Tony Schwartz did. It's Trump, The Art of the Deal. This was a huge book back in the day. And what year was this? This was like 1987. After he went bankrupt, he actually had The Art of the Comeback, which is a really good book too. But The Art of the Deal it basically is telling his daily life. That's what I thought was really cool about it. It was good to get an inside view of what someone at that level of real estate had to deal with every day. The kind of schedule that he had. He actually broke down a schedule. 8 o'clock, I went here, and 9 o'clock I went there, type of thing. And the type of interactions he had on a daily basis. He had a lot of good one-liners in there too. So it's pretty cool from a real estate perspective. If you're into real estate, is that something that you think will help make you rich, if that's where you want to go? And I have a huge real estate background in my life. So understanding that could help you to understand where the potential where you can go in real estate, and how it's called The Art of the Deal. The deal is so important in real estate, more than people even understand, more than I understood, even until later parts of my life. It doesn't matter like how much the price is, or it doesn't even matter location. It matters the deal, the whole package. What are you getting? Maybe you would invest in a neighborhood that's off by 10 years if the deal was right. Maybe you would invest in a property that's very expensive if you can manage to make the terms work better for you. So all politics aside, that's a pretty wise book. Tipping Point's good. What's this have to do with making money? Well, you can, first of all, this book by Malcolm Gladwell can be applied many different ways, but one of the ways that really can be applied to making money is understanding that if you have an idea that is really solid, at a certain point, you put enough pressure, and there's a tipping point where that idea can go viral, right? And he analyzes all different kind of scenarios where there were tipping points in history. And if you think about an idea like that, if you really are confident in an idea, there's a saying out there that says, an army of many can't stop an idea whose time has come. So if your idea really is something that you believe in, as time has come, it doesn't matter. Every military person in the world is not going to stop it. And there's a point where it hits that tipping point where it just becomes a force that must happen. Very powerful book. It's up to you how to apply that, again, to make you money. But it's about ideas. This is a book that I'm adding to the arsenal of Making You Rich, because it's a book on exercising the idea process in your mind and the potential for that, which ties into the imagination chapter of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Very, very powerful combination when paired with this book. Okay. There's a lot of standard finance books out there as well that were very, very popular. And we're going to talk about them real quick. So Dave Ramsey, I'm going to give him a shout out. So here's Financial Peace Revisited. This is one of the more popular ones that he has. And I liked this book a lot. I believe, and I haven't read this in a while. It's been, I mean, I haven't taught as a professor for 5 years. And there's a whole story to that. So there's some books that when I was in that zone, I was reading nonstop. But let me see, I believe this was the book about the snowball effect, which I thought was super cool. And I did apply that in certain areas. There's a, if this is the book, I believe, I'm pretty sure, let me just check so I'll show you the table of contents. There is a table. Is there a table of contents in here? Why would there not be a table of contents, Dave? Come on. It's got to be a table of contents. Here it goes. Okay. So chapter 1, the beginning. He has a lot of stories in here. Chapter 5, let the buyer beware. Sample chapters. Talks about mutual funds, dumping debt, lifestyles of the richest. Yeah, but the snowball effect is just a very interesting way to attack different aspects of your finance. It's a pretty good book, good personal finance book. Oh, sorry. Always treat your books with respect, folks. They contain knowledge, and knowledge can change the world. Only one book can change the world. You have many great books that can do many more powerful things exponentially. Here's another popular book. Okay, The Millionaire Next Door. Sorry, this is tripping out on the screen here, the light. So, The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas J. Stanley, PhD, and William D. Danko, PhD. The Surprising Secrets of America's Wealthy. One of the main, this is full of stories. One of the main quick notes to mind about this book is that it can make you rich because it makes you think about what rich is in a different way. Like rich people, poor people kind of have this image of them as fancy and walking around with their finger in their ear all the time and drinking tea and wearing billion-dollar suits and dresses. The truth is the modern millionaire doesn't look anything like that. I know most of the millionaires that I know actually wear jeans and t-shirts all day, every day. You can never figure out them being a millionaire, at least the ones I know. I mean, of course, you can go into LA and New York and go to the high life over there, and they look that way. The stereotypical average person's wearing Gucci and all that stuff. But the ones, at least here in Philadelphia, they play it down a lot, and they have to, because in tough environments like this, you don't want to show off too much. So they're wearing jeans and t-shirts, and they blend right in. You never know. And that's an important concept. The person next door to you could have been, there's another book out there called The Wealthy Barber. Could have been your barber who happened to really use wealth wisely and became rich because they saved their money, did all the things that finance teaches you, didn't waste their money, their expenses were low, and they became a millionaire, just even though they made maybe $50,000 a year, an average salary, whatever it is. They saved properly, as opposed to a surgeon that made $500,000 a year or $1 million a year or more, and they're poorer monetarily than that barber. How's that possible? It's because of the things that they did, right? They might not have studied finance officially, but they were implementing the techniques learned in finance. You know, doing budgets and all that kind of stuff, right? So Millionaire Next Door, that could be very helpful in your journey. I'd like to, okay, so I got a nice list here. Folks, I hope you're enjoying this video. It's going to be one of the more powerful ones. So I'll keep going. I know this will be a little bit longer. I want to talk about some of the people that I've met. So all right, let's start out with, actually, sorry. This is one of the top books on money out there by Stephen R. Covey. Stephen has now passed 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So you type in like money books on Amazon and you'll get this book every time. This is a great book. These are habits. So Stephen Covey was in the self-help lineage of teaching about what money, the Think and Grow Rich lineage. Okay. So they more or less worked on the mind to become rich. They didn't get into the finance concepts, the other part that I studied in per se, that I'm going to show you some books. They worked on the mind part, which is very important. Having these right habits are extremely crucial. Doing the things you do every single day, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, having the right habits is so important to building wealth. You know, how to invest and all stuff is important. We're going to talk about that too, but you got to work on your character first. Okay. And this is extremely great book. I had the privilege of interviewing his son, Stephen M. R. Covey IV. Dr. Covey has really, if you want to listen to the interview, it's a beautiful interview on Dr. Finance Live podcast, which is actually here. We're in the studio right now, right? This is his book, Trust and Inspire. He took his father's teachings to the next level, and he talked about trust and inspiration. You can have all those habits, but you do the habits in order to build trust and then to inspire other people to be a great leader. And I just want to showcase this a little bit. This is he's personally sent me this book. So September 27th, 2022, to Dr. Tony Criniti. I admire you and your work tremendously. I'm reading this in the screen here. So keep unleashing greatness in people everywhere by continuing to be an exceptional, trust, and inspire person and leader with admiration and gratitude, Stephen Covey. Cool. He didn't have to do this. He's such a nice guy, Stephen. Really, really genuine and really wants to help the world. So this is a great book. He is a leader in this field of trust. Such an important concept, folks. I mean, he's the perfect role model for this. If you don't have, here's the back of it, by the way. Look at all the people that wrote testimonies from Tony Robbins, you name it. If you don't have trust and gain people's trust, you can never really be rich, because people have to learn how to trust you in order to give you their money, right? For whatever you're doing, whatever you're selling, whether it's a service, a product. They don't have to, per se. Like some products, you know, if you're selling you know, something that they need right away and they're in a jam, they might buy it. But over the long haul, whether you're talking about selling socks or food products or services like a lawyer or financial planner or whatever it is, especially the professional services, people have to trust you. If they don't trust you, they're not going to stick around for the long term. Great leaders build trust. Okay, whether it's 1 follower, 10 followers, or millions of followers, you need to have trust, and that can make you very, very wealthy. But to do that, you've got to build character. And to go back to his dad's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you got to have the right habits, the habits of a great leader. Okay. All right. Here's another guy I interviewed, Robert G. Allen. Definitely check his interview out on the Dr. Finance Live podcast. This is a very famous book, Multiple Streams of Income, How to Generate a Lifetime of Unlimited Wealth. The message really here is that, and this, he is a very good, he ties in some of the essentials of traditional finance in his books. If you want to make wealth, he's attacking the income side. Okay, so there's 4 major financial statements: the income statement, the cash flow statement, a statement of retained earnings, and then the balance sheet. Balance sheet deals with net worth and all that stuff, the assets and liabilities. But the income statement and the cash flow statement, this is where he's really attacking this, particularly the income statement. If you got a lot of income coming in from one source, you're not going back to Harry Markowitz's book, Diversification, Portfolio Diversification, the concept of diversification. You're not diversified. But if you have multiple streams of income coming from different sources, and to use a financial term, negatively correlated, it means they're not exactly the same. You're spreading out the risk in case you lose the income from one source. You have other sources still running, the machine's still running to keep you afloat. All right, so that's a great book for that. All right, I want to talk about, I got to showcase some of my mentor Sharon Lechter's books. So let's start with what you guys already know. Every book, every video on making money and books that can make you rich and all that stuff. Some of the top books that they make, every one of those videos has this book in it, but not exactly this book. They have different variations. I have the original. Check this out, folks. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, #1 New York Times bestseller. But I want you to look closely at this, by Robert Kiyosaki with Sharon Lechter. Sharon Lechter's my mentor, folks. I've interviewed her twice, the only person I've interviewed twice on my podcast. There were 3 people that made this book really possible. 3 major players: Sharon, Robert, and Sharon's husband, Michael Lechter. So I've interviewed 2 of them on my podcast, one of them twice, the Dr. Finance Live podcast. Check out my first interview with Sharon. And I couldn't even really get the lighting right on that video. So it was pretty interesting how far we came. At this point, I'm thinking I'm up to 110 on 111 episodes. But this, if you want the full story, I would check out the interview I did with Michael Lechter. He was the attorney that matched Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon Lechter, his wife, together to eventually write this book. And also check out Sharon's interview. Honestly, this book never did it for me. I'm a big fan of Sharon's, but this book, personally, it never did it for me. There is some really good concepts in her, though. I really love her introduction. I mean, that's one of the things that stands out to me, is her introduction, because her mission is so incredible to educate folks. But this was a brilliant marketing piece. It's a very thin book. It's not that big. I actually probably have a thicker version of it, but it's really not that big. Here's a picture of Robert and Sharon. This book this is the most popular personal finance book in history. It's tens of thousands, 40, 50,000, I think they're up to, reviews on Amazon. 1997. Oh, by the way, check out, if you want to learn about Robert Kiyosaki also, although I didn't interview him, I interviewed Doria Cordova. Robert Kiyosaki's history was with Money and You. Doria Cordova was his first business partner, and she tells a great story. So there's a lot of my podcasts tie into the history of this book. As a professor, all I kept hearing about was this book. People always ask me questions. What do you think about this from Rich Dad Poor Dad? 10 years I heard that stuff. It didn't do it for me, but I'm leaving this book here because I know it's changed a lot of other people's lives. Some business partners that I've had in the past, some very successful people that I've known. I was shocked whenever I brought this book up, people that from like the streets of Philadelphia without any education, but they read this book. And it changed their life. And I was like, this book, you changed your life. Mostly unexpected people that I know, somehow this book changed their life. So I'm leaving it out there because the title of this is not read these books and it will change my life. It's read these books and it could change your life. Okay. Because I'm here to serve you guys. Like, this might change your life. It didn't do it for me, but it might do it for you. So it keeps some concepts really simplified in here. So check it out. Hopefully it works for you. And while we're on Sharon, I just want to briefly talk about some of her other books. Sharon was a superstar beyond Rich Dad Poor Dad. So we talked about Think and Grow Rich. She actually did a deal with Napoleon Hill Foundation called Think and Grow Rich for Women. It is a very semi-thick book. Let's see, 300 plus pages. And she ties a lot of very, very popular women who are very successful women into her book, including Jean Chadsky, who I interviewed on the podcast as well, Oprah's financial expert for 3 years. So there's a lot of wisdom in this book too. This might change your life especially if you're a woman entrepreneur and you want to know what other successful women are doing, how they got where they are. Okay. So, or if you're a man and you have women in your family and you want to know how to make them do better. All right. Here's a whole bunch of role models. As a fact, let me spend the time because I know this could be very helpful to some. If you go to the beginning of the book, let's see. Yeah, there's a whole list of just people in there, and I can't find it right now, but there's a whole list of people who had a lot of things to say about this particular topic. So another book by Sharon Lechter in a deal with the Napoleon Hill Foundation is Think and Grow, 3 Feet from Gold. Okay, this was an incredible book, actually. So Dr. Greg Reid, who I interviewed on my podcast, check out that interview too. Dr. Greg Reid did this with Sharon, and forward by Mark Victor Hansen, also interviewed him. Mark was the Chicken Soup for the Soul co-author, the largest nonfiction book in history, sold 500 million copies or more, or something like that. Anyway, this was a big story that I really enjoyed this book. Greg went on a journey of meeting all these people to do this and just interviewed like really great superstars. And the idea behind 3 Feet from Goal, most people quit right before the goal line when they're right there. They just didn't realize it. What a crazy concept, right? This ties into persistency and Think and Grow Rich, 13 Steps to Richest, one of his steps. Being persistent is what takes you not from the 3 foot line to the goal, to accomplishing your goal, to making a touchdown in life. Persistence. You could be right there. Whenever you're lacking in positivity and you're like, I can't do this, I can't do, being very negative. This book is perfect because it really inspires you to realize that if you really believe in this, if this is what your heart is set for, you could be right there. So why would you stop? If this is really what you want to do, you could be right there and you just don't know it. You're 3 feet from gold. It's a beautiful concept. Another one of Sharon's books, Outwitting the Devil. And I've heard this changed a lot of people's lives as well, working with the Napoleon Hill Foundation. Okay. This book is a book for businesses. Sharon wrote this with Michelle Seiler Tucker. You can check that interview out as well. Michelle Seiler Tucker, I interviewed her, one of my earlier episodes. She's a specialist in selling businesses. Her minimum sales for her business is like 10 million. Okay. And the concept of this Exit Rich is that you should plan your business to sell it from the beginning, so you have an idea of where you're going with the business, how you're going to improve on it. And this ties in with a book I'm going to show you in just a second called The E-Myth. But in order, if you ever, instead of an E-Myth book, he talks, Michael Gerber talks about work on your don't work in your business, work on your business. You work on your business so you can exit rich, right? That's why you're working on your business. So you can maybe not sell it, but create a value that in case you ever wanted to sell it, it can be transferred without problem in this life or the next. So if you pass away, there's a value to transfer that to your heirs or whoever the next person is if you're the beneficiaries don't want that. Okay, so this is the financially scientific way to work on your business, exit rich. And she sells businesses, and so she has to dissect this in a way that really can help people understand valuation methods. And there's many different valuation methods that are discussed in finance, including the P method and all that stuff. Well, she has some systems that some valuation methods that she puts in this book that gives you a better understanding of how to value companies. That's a financial concept, how to value different companies. Okay, so Exit Rich, beautiful book. And Sharon Lechter was in that. Okay, folks, we're almost there. I just mentioned the E-myth. So if you type in entrepreneur in Amazon, this book will probably be at the top of the list. Michael E. Gerber. I interviewed Michael. You can check out Michael Gerber's interview on the Dr. Finance Live podcast, why most businesses don't work and what to do about it. It's called the E-myth, right? So exploding the myth that only entrepreneurs succeed in running businesses. But what is the E-myth? And he explained this on the podcast. It's the myth that only entrepreneurs are going to succeed in business. The main concept here is he differentiates a concept called what he calls the technician versus the entrepreneur. Most people get in business to run away from their employer, only to realize that they have now work for the biggest lunatic on the planet. That's themselves. In other words, they've created a job, made themselves the boss of themselves to run away from a job because they don't want to be bossed around by someone else. And they find out that is a nightmare situation. They don't like working for themselves. The main concept is that a technician, a person who specializes in something, whether you're making little parts for a watch or you are working in a factory, an assembly line, or whatever your job may be, you're an expert in one thing. That doesn't mean you're going to be a successful entrepreneur and own your own business. It's a whole nother set of skill sets that you have to learn, which ties into my field, finance. And actually, in my first book, Necessity of Finance, I put all those subjects, business, entrepreneurship, all of them. They're all under the umbrella of finance. Okay, so if you're learning finance, you're learning about accounting, you're learning about marketing, you're learning about entrepreneurship. And one thing about entrepreneurship, you have to learn a lot of those other cross-related subjects as well in order to be a successful entrepreneur. This is above and beyond the specialty you already learned your whole life. So if you want to open up your own shop of whatever it's called, whatever you specialize in, because you're good at it, don't think you're going to make money just because you're good at that. You also now have to learn how to do business. If you don't have that skill set, welcome on the journey, because it will be a journey and it's going to be hard. That's why most businesses, high 90% fail in less than a few years. It's statistic. You go to Small Business Administration, they have a whole breakdown of how many businesses fail in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and it's all of them are very, very high in the 90s because they don't learn what he talks about. It's a very small book, but this book I've witnessed in Clubhouse on my stages. When I asked people what's the book that changed their life, many people talked about this. Actually, I was introduced to Michael Gerber from Ivan Meisner, the head of BNI, the largest business network in the organization in the world, who I interviewed. And he said this book changed his life. So think about that. This book changed the lives of the head of a business network in an organization, the biggest one in the world. And how many people are in there or were in there and was affected from this book. So it's an amazing, amazing book, especially if you're on the entrepreneurial journey. This could help you to make wealth, to make some money. And that was the original, actually. Here's the revisited one. So this is the one that he talked about on the new podcast edition. All right, revisited. the world's #1 small business guru. I like his new cover. The world's Michael E. Gerber. That's the updated version of the email. All right, we're going to go a little classical here in finance. All right, we're going to finance now. Learn about what books can make you money. Now, this is a very classic book, a very thick and technical book. It's called The Theory of Investment Value by John Burr Williams. Let's see. John Burr Williams. The Theory of Investment Value. Okay. It's thick. It is it's over 600 pages. And I'll just give you a little sample. Some pages look like this. Sorry, trying to get this right. Everything's in reverse on a video. All right. It's a lot of formulas. But it's not like portfolio diversification with Harry Markowitz. That's just complete formulas, right? This is, you got a lot of writing and stories and stuff like that. But mostly it's very, very technical in the realm of investment value. This is probably one of the first major investment value books, or books on investing in this way. The copyright on this was originally published in 1938 by Harvard University Press. So this is the year after Think and Grow Rich. The Great Depression produced a lot of very valuable works in the field of finance, investment, all that stuff, from books to even magazines. A lot of the major business magazines were started around the Great Depression. It had people thinking about money in a different way. And this is also a product of that. They're trying to understand what's going on in their economic environment. So investment value, how this can make you rich, because it helps you to really think about investing in a different way. I'll be honest, this is very, very technical. You're gonna have to take your time with this, and most likely it would not be of value to you if you don't already have some kind of background in investments. This is like an advanced book. I will get to this after you really got some good foundational books to you. Okay, in particular, start with this one, another classic. Benjamin Graham, by the way, I'm only showing you one of his books, but he has several books, and they're all really good. But this is the famous one. This is a famous classic book. It's called The Intelligent Investor. The classic text on value investing, featured a new foreword by, well, wait a minute, John Bogle? Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. John Bogle, how funny. I'm going to show you his books next. The perfect timing. Founder of the Vanguard Group. My buddy, John Bogle. He was a legend that somehow I got intertwined with the Vanguard Group right out of college. I'll tell you that story another time. But so he did the foreword for this. That's amazing. Warren Buffett. This is Warren Buffett's like top pick. So Warren Buffett don't have any books, as far as I know. Books were written for him or about him and stuff, but he didn't actually write a book. And he's one of the greatest, most well-known investors out there. But this is his book from the interviews that have been done that I've heard of him. He picks The Intelligent Investor, and this is a classic. And John Bogle doing the foreword. John Bogle, yeah, I remember now. John actually, this book changed his life. So this is like really powerful in terms of the people that it's already influenced. Some of the most successful investors on the planet. I would say all of them should know about this book, if not read this book. It ties in portfolios and dollar cost averaging. A lot of things that I learned as a employee right out of college working for Vanguard, the concepts started here. Being intelligent as an investor, it's not gambling. We're actually using our brains to figure out which investments are going to make us money, particularly in the realms of finding stocks and all that stuff. And this ties into what John Bogle taught, this creation of his company, the Vanguard Group, the creation of the 500 index fund, putting all the top companies from the S&P 500 into one fund, which revolutionized the mutual fund industry, the retirement industry, mutual funds as a whole. all had their roots in portfolio selection, Harry Markowitz's theory of diversification, which had its roots going back to Ben Graham. This is what John Bogle, who changed the world, was studying before finance, the official science was created. This was the book that he read. So when you read all of Bogle's books, and Bogle has a lot of books, these are where he got his ideas from, which led to one idea leading to what he created. So this is John Bogle. This is the legend. He's a legend in the financial world. John Bogle created the Vanguard Group, which was the largest investment company in the world. Now it's the second largest with BlackRock. Between those two companies, they own over 50% of the assets in this world that have value. Okay? And this man started all, but he was this very simple, nice, genuine guy. Whatever you think of the company today or whatnot, you know, he started it with an intention of helping other people. And he's right. I'm from Philadelphia. He's Malvern, Pennsylvania is where the Vanguard Group originally was stationed, and he was there. And this is one of his books, John Bogle on Mutual Funds. John Bogle, Character Counts was another one. All these books, by the way, well, not all of them actually. I thought all of them. No. Okay. I don't know why. Maybe not this one. This one, let's see. Yeah. So John Bogle, Character Counts. This is a great book also. It tells the story of how the Vanguard Group was built. And here's his autograph, my man, John Bogle. If you go on my website, you'll see a picture of me and him when I was younger. It's on my about page. It says drfinance.info. Okay. This is John Bogle. I got to meet him. I was fortunate enough. He died now. He died a few years ago, but that's him. That's John Bogle. He's a legend. I mean, he created in the investment world something that was amazing, and it all started with an idea, right? So this book can help you to understand more about the creation of the largest investment company, which can help you to understand about wealth building, investing, how investing works at the highest levels. Right? This is some of the basic building blocks in the story of one of the most successful companies that was ever created, investment companies. Here's another one. He's got a lot of books, but these are three I'm showing you. John Bogle, Investing the First 50 Years. Okay. Industry Defining Wisdom from the founder and former chairman of the Vanguard Group. Forward by Paul Volcker, former Federal Reserve chairman. Okay. Great Ideas in Finance. So this book is pretty thick, but it's about 400 pages, but it's big. A lot of technical terms in here, but you'll find the common theme between all three of his books. They all really tie into a lot with what, sorry, some of these books are actually really dusty. I haven't read them in a while, but I'm really glad I'm doing this video because I'm actually showing you more than just books. See, this was signed by John too. As an employee of Vanguard, I got to see John a lot, probably once a week in the cafeteria, and got to the little time I spent with him. It was just cool to hear him talk to even other people asking questions. You know, he would sign your books. He was he sat in the cafeteria and ate lunch with his employees, regular people. And here he is, this like investment guru. He's just really a great guy. That's John Bogle again. All right. A few more books. We're almost done, folks. And that's the show for today. I want to also talk about The Go-Giver. This is important to tie in if you want to be wealthy and make money. You got to understand the concepts. I interviewed both of these fellows here, Bob Burg, who's a Hall of Fame speaker, and John David Mann. I had them both on my podcast and my Dr. Finance Live masterclass in Clubhouse back in the day. And this book, introduced by Arianna Huffington, the concept is the Go-Giver is a very special person. And if you ask them, the giving is such an important part of life. Like, you can make money, but you got to learn at some point. You're going to have, if you really became successful and monetarily rich, at a certain point, there's a tipping point, all right, that I called in my last book, The Survival of the Richest, the prosperity tipping point where you don't need any more money. You've already got enough to survive now and in the future, and everything else is earmarked for giving, and you become this philanthropist if you're living the life you're supposed to at that point. Otherwise, you're just wasting wealth. It's gonna die with you, and you're not gonna have used it properly during the limited time you have on this planet. So this is a great book to help you think about that. He tells a story. It's a small book with a story behind it, and the story really reflects a lot about the essence of being a person with the right character. To sum a key point up, Bob Burg put it this way: most people think of making money like it's throwing darts at the dartboard and the bullseye is money, right? But the idea really is that serving should be the bullseye. Making money is the reward. So you serve other people, and money comes after that as a reward of doing that. You don't aim at making money; you aim at serving people, and the money just happens naturally, right? So there is a lot of truth to that. I also want to just say that, so the book is very short, but look at all the people that had David Bach, Daniel Pink, Larry Huffington, was that Marie Forleo, Dave Ramsey, Glenn Beck, Lisa McLeod. A lot of these folks have endorsed this book. It's sold over 1 million copies, and another one of those books. When I had stages and I asked what were the books that changed your life, this book came up a lot. So it's not just about making money, folks. It's also about what you're going to do with it when you get it. I just want to show you quickly. This is a very quick section of this little, excuse me, folks. I got to reach. I got books everywhere here. I just took a small sample of some of the things I had. I got books from teaching all over the place. But these are just, look, as a professor, I got books like this all the time. These are $300 textbooks. If you go and become a student at a university, you got to get books like this. They got finance books. I taught every kind of finance under there, from capstones, the real estate finance, you name it, undergrad to doctoral level. But one of the things I kept finding was that a lot of them have the same definitions of finance, they're missing something, because they're created. I'm not saying this book in particular, but they're created by a bunch of other professors that teach finance. And in the academic world, professors become complacent. The average professor becomes complacent after a while, and they don't want to move any further. They're comfortable in their area, and that could be a dangerous position. So they just, the ideas become stale. All these different textbooks, yeah, they can help you make money. There's a personal finance book. I got probably hundreds of these, if not thousands. Some show some of these to you guys to give you an idea. I guess I'm showing off a little bit. Why not? Showing off all the dust on the book. I haven't looked at them in a while. Entrepreneurial finance. I'm just showing you that there's all different kinds of finance, from a traditional academic version of this conversation, international financial management, an investment side of this. These are all college level courses, from graduate to undergraduate. And then you got corporate finance. So there's so many different types of finance. These are all thick textbooks. A whole bunch of dust just fell out on me. I haven't read these in a long time. And then, there's one other thing, the American College, the books I had to read for them to get my CHFC and CLU master's degree, all that stuff. I didn't go to American College for a doctor. I wish they had the financial planning doctorate that they came up with later. American College is one of the top personal finance universities out there, and it's right here, actually, near Philadelphia, and I think in Bryn Mawr. I had to read all these books, and they had one on estate planning and one on risk management, all these different personal finance, nice classic books, blue binder, very, very classic looking, very thick and detailed. that might not be for you. So that's what I had to go through in my journeys, reading books like that, plenty of them. They helped to change the course of my wealth, but for the average person, I don't think that's necessary. And I'm just showing you these textbooks to give you an idea of what it looks like if you went the academic route. That's why some of the other books that I gave you today give you a smorgasbord of different books to really shape your financial destiny by applying it from different angles to really build the character and the person that you need to become to make that kind of money. It's not just straight and narrow learning investments. That's not just it. They teach you that in finance, because in academic finance, that's what it is. We're going to teach you about investments. We're going to teach you how to build businesses, but we're going to look at it from one way. There's many levels of the mind that have to be discovered and discussed in order to perfect that entrepreneurial individual that surpasses all the odds stacked against them of becoming successful financially. Okay. So with that said, folks, I haven't talked about my books at all because I'm trying to not be biased, but I'm also not going to pretend that the ideas that I've created are useless to this conversation. So if you don't mind me, I would like to discuss these real quick, and I'll get into details of it. Sorry, this books are tripping out, but I don't even need to show you. These are all three of my books together. They're this thick. Okay, so these are my books, the thickness of all three of them. As you can see, my last book is the thickest of them all. They're on the wall here. The Necessity of Finance, I wrote that as a university professor. If you want to get an overview of finance, the subject as a whole, I would start there. This book will give you a general overview of not just finance. I have a whole section on the history of it. It's like 10 pages. That's it. You can review that in there. And then it walks you through a connection in the relationship between all the different aspects of finance, from time value of money to compounding, all that stuff. But there were conclusions that I came upon on that book that really led to some of the greater discoveries in my life. It helped me to, first of all, build the second book, The Most Important Lessons in Economics and Finance. I have 218 principles in there. Shoot. Okay. Yeah. So 218 principles on there that are some of the most time-tested principles that I've discovered. Of all the thousands of principles I went through, these are the ones that, no matter what, stand the test of time 2,000 years ago and most likely 2,000 years from now of managing wealth. Okay, so they're very important. I would definitely keep that book by my desk if I was a finance student. The Survival of the Richest, I want to talk about this. I went off on the deep end a little bit, but it was a relevant, it was a journey I wanted to go on. The Survival of the Richest. So I'll just show you a portion of the table of contents. A lot of the subjects that I go in there are related, but I went deep. So here's just a quick sample. So there's basically 4 parts. I connected survival to finance, to economics, and even to biology. With the concept of the survival of the richest, I could not, and I unfortunately figured this out after at least 6 months to a year into it. I had to dive deep into biology, and that's not my specialty, but I had to do it because the survival of the fittest, the concept, one of the greatest scientific concepts out there, and really arguments out there, which was expanded on by Charles Darwin. And to title it The Survival of the Richest, connecting it to biology without really addressing it in deep detail the way I did would be an insult to science, and I couldn't do that. So this realization took me on a course of many more years to really finish this. This was a long book, 500 plus pages, and took me a lot of time. But the conclusions were deep. It tied at every level that finance is basically an extension of survival. Prosperity is an extension of survival. The sciences of prosperity, which I called in there, including economics, which led to other conclusions. Like finance was, even though it was technically started after officially than economics, it's actually the parent of economics when you apply my definitions of what the sciences are. A lot of really deep arguments in here. Could this make you rich? If you apply it holistically, the concept of rich, yes. Because it can help you to understand the world in a different way. And these are the enlightened thoughts that I had to gain in order to be a better version of myself. I had to go deep into very difficult subjects. I mean, even studying history in a different way, uncovering the bad parts of humanity, like genocide and war. I had to go deep in that area to really get at the essence of life. And that was very revolutionary and revealing for me in my journey to become financially successful. Realizing that making money is just a part of it all, and there's so much more there's that we don't put value on, including what we can do in this planet, making a bigger difference. People who have the potential to make this world a better place. How do you value those people? Those people could be sitting here with $0 in the bank, but with all that potential and all the experiences built into their mind and in their body, it's just another way to look at, review, and rediscover what the concept of wealth really means, and reapply it. So it's a deep book, but if you want to learn, this is like the next level of finance. It's definitely something I would put on the book, put on the list to read. And again, this is, I know I'm being self-promoting, but I have the experience of knowing what's out there in the field of money, and not just another 1,000 books when I can make you rich. No, but really books with real knowledge of changing your life. And I've read them, not all of them, but most of them, if not a lot of them, and taught them. And the concepts here are built on those folks. I stood on the shoulders of giants. I didn't just come out with this knowledge. I did the work first. This, in science, they call it standing on the shoulders of giants. And I referenced those people that I read in there. The first part of that book is probably the biggest overview of the science of survivalism out there at that time, which was necessary to get to my later conclusions. All right, enough with that. Last book, folks. After you get rich financially, let's say monetarily, okay, and using my definition of finance from a holistic standpoint, you're wealthy in all areas of life. You need to understand something. Being wealthy or being monetarily rich is not all that people who've never had money understand. There's a lot of problems that come with that. It doesn't solve all problems. It helps solve a lot of problems. But with solving of problems is gaining of new problems. Okay? I'm not thinking of Biggie Smalls. I don't know for any rap fans out there. Mo money, mo problems. Well, that's exactly what happens. This is a really cool book to end this journey today, this trip down here. But J. Paul Getty, How to Be Rich. His formulas from the legend himself. It's a thin book, very, very small book. Stories mostly. 205, over 214 pages that I have right here. This is a book that started out, I believe, as an article from Playboy magazine. Let's see. Yes. Publishing history. Playboy Press hardcover edition, published in 1965. Soft cover, 1966. Mass market edition from Jove, 1983. Copyright 1965 by Playboy, from Playboy magazine. Actually 1961, original. So John Paul Getty was the wealthiest person in the world at this time. He wrote this book, How to Be Rich. And it's not what you think it is. It's not how to get rich, how to do all this and that to become monetarily wealthy. You would think that. He's playing around with the title, How to Be Rich. It's actually about how to be rich. Not how to be rich, as in getting rich, but how to be rich once you get rich. So there's stories in there, but more than stories, it's wisdom. This man, you can see it through reading this book. You can see the wisdom that he's pouring into this book of explaining to people. It's such an important book. Most people don't really even think about it. They're always thinking about, how do I make money and how do I get rich? I want to be rich. I want to be rich. But never think about what happens when you actually get there. This book is powerful. It really explains what to prepare for if you actually get your wish and become monetarily rich. He's got a lot of wisdom in there and explains it like it is about becoming a millionaire and the problems that come with that. You actually lose a lot of your freedom, and he breaks it down very, very well. Let's see if I can find this line here. I love this part. All right, page 191. If you don't mind, I just want to read this. It's really, really cool. 191. Let's see if I show it off. Okay. This is really, really cool. Listen to this, folks. No, despite all the many advantages he enjoys, the wealthy businessman's life is not all champagne and caviar. He must accept the fact that despite his wealth and this position, there are drawbacks to being a millionaire. He may be respected or admired for achieving success and wealth, but he must expect that a considerable and vociferous segment of the population will envy and even hate him for it. There are times when he may be praised for what he says or does, but he will be reviled at least as often. In some ways, a millionaire just can't win. And he goes on and on. It's just really, really cool to think about being rich and stepping in the shoes of a rich, monetarily rich person for a second, which the average common person, they don't think like this. They're thinking about how to make the money. They're not thinking about how to get it. But I'm just going to, one last thing is this page that I'm about to show you really changed my life. It's one of the highlights of this book. And actually, I can give him credit for shaping my life. I'm personally not extremely monetarily rich because I purposely spent more time in my life focusing on shaping and customizing my life to create invaluable experiences. And there was a point where I could have very earlier in my life could have easily went the route and just focused money. If that was my only goal, I would have been probably 9-figure entrepreneur by now, or more. But reading this book in this particular section actually kept me on track to keep doing what I was doing. And I give him partial credit for that. So on page 210, he actually talks about his cousin, this guy, Hal Seymour. He says here on 210, Hal and I grew up together. We were always close friends, and for long periods, we were constant companions. Hal cared very little for money. Content to earn enough for his own needs, he good-naturedly turned down every opportunity I offered him for earning more. So his aim in life was, fast forward, his aim in life was always to do whatever he attempted well. He realized this aim. He always gave more than he took. Hal considered himself to be very wealthy in personal freedom. He was always able to do the things he wanted to do and always had the time in which to do them. He seldom had a chance to miss the chance to remind me that in these regards, listen to this, folks, I was much poorer than he is. Remember, this is the richest guy in the world at that time. Before his death a few years ago, he says, he frequently wrote me letters which opened with the wryly humorous but meaningful salutation to the richest man in the world from the wealthiest. All right, so here's one of his closest friends. He said to the richest man in the world from the wealthiest. He's like jabbing me, letting him know that, yeah, you have the most money, but I'm actually the wealthiest, because he did everything he wanted to do. Right? He had the freedom to do it. John Paul Getty, one of the richest men in the world, he didn't have the freedom. He didn't have the time to do this. Even though he had all the money, he didn't have the time to do this because he was so busy working his business. He couldn't do all the things he wanted in life. And that's why this next part I'll read, the last part I promise, is so powerful. I'll have to admit that I envied Hal, he says, his abundance of time, which is one of the forms of wealth that people tend to disregard these days. Rich as I may be from a material standpoint, I've long felt that I'm very poor. Indeed, in time. For decades, my business affairs have made extremely heavy inroads on my time, leaving me very little I could use as I pleased. There are books that I've wanted to read and books I've wanted to write. I've always yearned to travel to remote parts of the globe, which I've never seen. One of my greatest unfulfilled ambitions has been to go on a long, leisurely safari in Africa. Money has not been a bar to realization of these desires insofar as money is concerned. This is the last part, it's very important. I could have easily afforded to do any of these things for many years. The blunt and simple truth is that I've never been able to do them because I could never afford the time. The richest guy in the world couldn't do the things he wanted. And as I was reading this, it's funny, the part that changed my life is when I was 19, I went on a program called Semester at Sea. I went around, I literally circumnavigated the globe. A kid from pretty much the ghetto parts of Philadelphia, very broken down neighborhoods in the 90s. And my mental state at that point was in the right place. And but I gained these experiences. I actually went on a safari in Africa. I got to see all these things. Kid without much money at all, and what appeared hopeless of a future. And if people were betting on me at that state of my life in high school, let's just say, they would have said that I probably wouldn't have lived another few years, let alone do all these things. And I did that. And he also mentions about there are books I wanted to read. I read a lot of books. And books I wanted to write. I wrote 3 books. Richest guy in the world. I only believe he wrote 1. Maybe he wrote a few more. I'm not sure, but he could have wrote thousands if he wanted to. He had the money. He could have freed up his time, but he didn't do it. And I started thinking about this. I'm like, wow, I'm onto something here. I don't need to have all the money in the world. I just got to have the life that I want. I just got to do the things that I wanted to do. That will make me wealthy. To create and design the life that I want to have in this world. That will make me the wealthiest person in the world, from my perspective. And I'm sharing this with you because we don't have to be ranked as the richest person in the world, or even become a billionaire, or even a multi-millionaire. Just be the best version of yourself. You're not competing with anybody but yourself. Just keep improving yourself. And that will make you, my friends, not just money, but will make you even more than that. It will make you the wealthiest that you can be. I want to conclude on that note, folks. It's very important to understand how to make money, but also how to be rich, and not just monetarily rich, but rich as from a holistic standpoint, rich in all aspects of life. And to do that, you have to become a great leader by reading and understanding many of the concepts and books that I've mentioned today, from trust to inspiration to all the 13 steps to riches in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Becoming a better version of yourself. And then once you make the money, you know how to invest it in not just investments traditionally, but investments personally. Invest in yourself. Number one asset in the world is yourself. Invest in yourself. Because when they take all your money from you, when they take everything from you, you'll still have you. And then you can do whatever you want because you are portable. Your house might burn down tomorrow with everything in it. But if you're still alive and in great health, you can always rebuild as long as time is there for you. And this is because you are the best version of yourself. Because you have improved who you are and have upgraded your mental thinking, your knowledge base, your character. And this is portable value beyond what can be put on a balance sheet. I'd like to conclude and thank you, folks. I appreciate everybody for being here today. This was actually supposed to be a 10-minute video. I'm sure it's much longer than that. But I want to thank you, and hopefully that this was extremely valuable to you. I really wanted to do this. I didn't really care about time on this. This is an important subject for me, being a writer first, because knowledge truly can be power if used properly. That's why you could get rich, not you will get rich from reading these books and other similar books. If you actually use it correctly, use that knowledge correctly. All right. And books are very, very important. So hopefully if you guys made it this far, it's probably resonated somewhat with you. Remember, folks, after you read, you actually have to implement. So thank you, folks. We'll see you on the next video. Comment. Let me know if this is the type of material that you like, if you really did. And if you have any questions, maybe I can make other videos based on that. So you got to see a different side of me today, folks. Showing off my books here, which have really played a big part in my life. So hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Dr. Anthony Criniti, the fourth here, signing off, also known as Dr. Finance. See you on the next episode. Thank you, folks.